I will call to order the Ottawa City Commission meeting for Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor Clayton,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley,
Present.
Commissioner Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore,
Present.
and Commissioner Van Layden.
Present. We're all present and accounted for. We have a quorum. I want to welcome everyone here in the audience, as well as those watching online. And if there's anyone next door in the overflow room as well, thank you all for being here. That'll take us to the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Pastor Nathan Mudd of Ottawa Community Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, you can remain standing. Thank you. I'd like to honor everybody in this room and to read words that are true for everyone here, and to rub in the watermelon eating contest that Mayor Clayton and I were against each other for. Sorry. From select reading from Psalm 16. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad, and my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. For you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, or let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. And so, Lord, this is my prayer this afternoon. I pray for a fullness of joy. I pray for counsel and for guidance, and everybody in this room is seeking that. I pray for our unity in our community and a blessing to result from discussion and from the proceedings here in this meeting. We pray a blessing for our city staff and for each of our commissioners. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. And you only have a year to wear that, so hopefully next year I'll be coming for you. That'll take us to item 6, consent agenda, which consists of minutes from the August 5th, 2026 regular meeting, minutes from the August 7th, 2026 special call meeting, selection of credit card processing services, authorization of service agreement with Lori Brothers Construction, and agenda approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to actually amend the agenda and add an item 11C to review or have a discussion about legal counsel for a petition that was submitted.
You said 11C.
Yes, please.
Okay. Is that motion as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. That'll take us to item 7, update on Proximity Park land sale agreement.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. You had asked at the end of the meeting last week for an update on the status of the land sale contract between Lightfield Energy LLC and the City of Ottawa. At this point in time, that contract would be in the entitlement period set to close on or before October 30th of 2026. There was a question concerning the approval notice from Section 5A of the original land sale contract and what that meant in terms of the two amendments that have been signed as part of that agreement. So I want to go through for a second how I come to that conclusion and how that's supported by normal canons of contractual interpretation used by courts. The first lodestar and guideline that courts use when interpreting a contract is what is the plain language of the contract? What does the contract itself say? In this case, Section 5A of the original contract anticipates an inspection period and then an approval notice to be given. And if that approval notice is given, the contract enters into the entitlement period and then proceeds towards closing. If that approval notice is not given, the contract does not proceed. There was a First Amendment to the contract in mid-2025, and that framework was retained. It was brought through into that First Amendment. It mentions the inspection period, the approval notice, then the entitlement period. The Second Amendment to the contract, approved in January of 2026, removes the approval notice requirement. The inspection period ends on a date certain, August 1st, 2026. The entitlement period begins on that same date certain, August 1st, 2026. The plain language of the Second Amendment to the land sale agreement drops out the approval notice requirement. The second canon that courts look to is the intention of the parties if it can be ascertained from the contract. And it can in this case. The original agreement had the approval notice requirement in it. And what was the point of the approval notice? That's not a protection for the seller. That's not a protection for the city. That's a protection for the buyer under the contract. It is an affirmative act that they must take to end their inspection period. It keeps them from inadvertently or accidentally ending up not fully exercising their due diligence and finding themselves in the entitlement period of the contract. It really has no utility to the seller. Who has the incentive to keep that provision in? The buyer. And you see that in the First Amendment to the contract. They intend to keep it in, and it is in. At the time of the Second Amendment, the buyer does not push for the approval notice. It's not in the contract. It's dropped out of the contract. The buyer no longer believes that they need that provision, and if they did, they've already shown in the First Amendment that they would have asked for it. It would have been a requirement. It would have been in the Second Amendment to the agreement, and it is not. So an intentional inclusion in the First Amendment highlights the intentional omission of that same thing in the Second Amendment to the agreement, and the intention of the parties can be reasonably inferred. I would note that by the time of the Second Amendment to the contract, what the buyer really wanted was more time. They wanted to extend the period before the agreement closed, and what the city wanted at that point was to ensure that there was adequate compensation for the fact that the property was being exclusively listed under the contract and was no longer for sale. And so you note that the framework changes in that Second Amendment to the land sale agreement to be about more time for more compensation to the taxpayers of the city of Ottawa. For those reasons, the plain language and the intent of the parties, no approval notice was required after the Second Amendment to the contract was accepted, and the contract is now in the entitlement period, which began August 1st, and the contract is set to close on or before October 30th of 2026. And with that, I'll stand for any questions from the commission.
Thank you for that. So for most of us, we probably have done a real estate transaction. Is it similar to, it may not be, but similar to like an inspection period, that if the buyer is backing out, they notify you at the end of an inspection period, but if they're not, they don't have to tell you?
Somewhat similar, Mr. Mayor. I would go back to the language of this contract where in the beginning, they had to affirmatively say that the property was suitable for their purposes and give an approval notice. And then by the Second Amendment, they say, unless we have otherwise told you that it's not suitable, the inspection period will end and the entitlement period will begin. So probably after that Second Amendment, it looks most like what you would see in a residential real estate contract.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I got in on this kind of late. So what's with the NDAs though? I guess I don't understand the NDAs.
So Commissioner, you've not signed an NDA,
No, I have not.
and none of the other commissioners here have signed an NDA relative to this project. There was an NDA early on in the project executed by a prior city manager and the city's economic development contractor at that time with CBRE. CBRE is a real estate firm. They wanted to keep the identity of their client confidential until such time as site selection was completed. That is the NDA that was signed in this case. Note that because Proximity Park is a public piece of property, it must be sold publicly. There must be a public contract discussed and voted on by the commission. That took place on December 18th, 2024. Whitefield appeared before the commission discussed the contract and their plans, and the commission voted on the contract in that open meeting. At that point, there was really nothing further for that NDA. At that point, CBRE's client had been disclosed, and they were no longer confidential. So my interpretation of that would be that that NDA became kind of null and void after December 18th, 2024. It related only to the identity of CBRE's client. There is not now, nor has there ever been, an NDA between the City of Ottawa and Lightfield Energy, and the commission has never signed an NDA with Lightfield Energy as part of this project. I would note that NDAs are used frequently in economic development projects, not only in this area, but across the state of Kansas and across all of the United States, most commonly in the way that you saw it in this case, about site selection. If you think about it, a company does not want their competitors to know the area that they're looking. They don't want them to get a jump on them. And they also don't want to announce that, for example, Amazon is coming to Gardner, and all of a sudden land prices go up exorbitantly because Amazon might be looking to purchase land in a specific area. So frequently, the NDA is designed to keep the identity of the potential buyer confidential throughout site selection. And then once that entity is known, in this case, because it's a public contract and must be approved publicly and was approved publicly, that NDA is of no further force and effect.
Mr. Finch, is there any incentive applications or any development agreements between city and Lightfield as of this point?
No. So we talked about conditions. We talked about the approval notice kind of being an original bargain for condition in the contract for the buyer. The seller also has some conditions in the contract, and chief among them is in Section 8, where an incentive application and a development agreement have to be submitted to the city. And what's more, the city has to be reasonably satisfied that that can be done prior to closing, or that excuses the closing of the contract. So that's paragraph 8C3, and then the next subsequent paragraph, I believe it's C4, talks about the effect of that.
So when you say ample time, the submission of those applications has to occur, or the actual agreement between the city and Lightfield has to occur?
Let's go back to, I had a law school professor who said, in the presence of the statute, don't think great thoughts, just read it. So if seller determines in seller's reasonable discretion that any of the above seller closing conditions cannot be met to seller's satisfaction prior to closing, any of those conditions cannot be met. So that would include the negotiation of the development agreement. And if you want, I can talk a little bit about incentive applications and development agreements.
Please.
So incentive applications are received by the city from a developer who's seeking an incentive package, and it might be any one of a number of things. You've seen that we've done reinvestment housing incentive districts, we've done CIDs and TIFs, and we do constitutional tax abatements and IRBs. Those are all different types of incentives that the state of Kansas allows for cities across the state to offer as part of an economic development package. The incentive application must contain enough specificity so that the city can process the application. That typically requires at least the investment that's going to be made. So the developer would have to be able to tell you, we want to build 6 buildings or 2 buildings or 1 building. They would need to be able to certify the number of jobs that they think their investment will create. That has to be in the application. And then they would have to submit their fiscal analysis. In other words, what is it in their minds that makes them believe that incentives are necessary for the project? And once that's submitted, the city provides that information to its third-party financial analyst who does its own but-for analysis. So, but for these incentives, does this project still work? In addition, the city's economic development policy requires us to notify other taxing entities that may be affected, most notably the school district and the county, when you're talking about anything that might reduce property tax revenue. And then in addition to that, it requires a public hearing. And then the commission has to approve the granting of incentives under our policy. So no incentive application has been received, and therefore none of those other steps have taken place yet. And I would note that when it comes to the incentive application, that process is completely up to the commission as to whether or not incentives are granted. There is one provision in the land sale contract in 5B that sets a cap on the amount of tax abatement the developer can request under the land sale contract. It's capped at 75%. Note that that does not bind the commission in any way to grant an abatement of 75%. You are free to agree. You are free to disagree and offer something less. You are free to say no to an abatement entirely. Your discretion remains unfettered under this land sale contract and your economic development policy. The second part is the development agreement. A development agreement is standard operating procedure in Ottawa and across the state when it comes to a developer coming to the community. And what you typically see in a development agreement, as the city manager said back on July 1st in his presentation, that is kind of the master agreement that ties it all together. So if there are provisions in the zoning code or provisions in other areas of city regulations, those can be bootstrapped in to the development agreement. In a case like this, you would expect to see things about electricity sales, water sales, light, sound, stormwater, wastewater, all contained in the development agreement. You would expect to see the incentive package called out in the development agreement. And typically, those incentives become the stick to the incentive carrot. In other words, if the developer doesn't follow through on their promises under the development agreement, the city's most frequently used remedy, or a most effective remedy, I should say, would be to eliminate incentives. So in other words, if you want to continue to receive the public incentive, you have to fulfill your obligations under the development agreement. If you don't, they go away. For a big project, you'd also expect to see in a development agreement provisions about community benefits. So, for example, payments in lieu of taxes. A lot of times if an abatement is granted, a developer will agree to go ahead and make payment to the school district of the taxes that the school district would have gotten anyway. It might include things like spending on recreation or quality of life amenities to improve something in the community. It might include spending on additional infrastructure, things that are needed. For example, if a distribution center came to Ottawa and there were going to be additional trucks on the road, it might see money spent or set aside for intersection improvements or traffic signals, that kind of thing. Some places focus on STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. Others, recently there's one in Kansas, a development that is talking about tuition assistance to any county graduate. So all of those community benefits would go into the development agreement as well. As you might imagine, it takes a minute to negotiate those. Those development agreements must be passed by the city commission. They are not something that staff approves. So again, that's something that would come back to you for a vote and your approval as a development agreement is negotiated.
I have a question if you're ready. Okay, for that. I wasn't sure if you were still going or not. So, okay, you mentioned that this must be passed by the city commission, the development agreement, everything that it includes. So, I mean, October 30th, that's really not that far away. And I'm assuming it is a lot of work that goes into the development agreement, even beyond incentive packages and everything like that, and us approving it, getting it on the agenda and approving. So if they don't turn in a development agreement, are we required to close on the contract, or is that a way to, or is that an end to the contract essentially?
So I want to be careful as your attorney to give you confidential or privileged advice in public is not something that I would normally do. But to answer your question about what does the contract say, that paragraph 8 in the contract, sorry, that section 8 says if those things are not done, if you all decide that they cannot be done, then you have the right to terminate the contract. That is a decision reserved to the city commission under the contract. You would not have an obligation to close if those things were not completed to your satisfaction.
And that would not be terminating the contract in any sort of way. I mean, would that open us up to any legal ramifications, or is it that is our
without
that is
answering
the out-
okay yeah well without answering that question directly, let me talk
answering-
generally about theories of contracts. Okay, first and foremost, the law of the state of Kansas, the Constitution of the state of Kansas, and the local charter of this community give you all the authority to enter into contracts for the sale of land, to determine whether you stay in contracts for the sale of land, to determine whether you close contracts for the sale of land. That is an exclusive power of the city commission. That does not belong to the city manager or the finance director or the city attorney or any other member of staff. So first and foremost, that's a decision the commission makes. Contracts generally, usually, and all of us have probably bought a house or sold a house, we've seen a real estate contract. you've signed up for a cell phone and signed a contract that many people don't read. They have different provisions about how you get out of them. They have different termination provisions in the contract. And some methods of terminating a contract cost you money and some don't. And so if that is ultimately a decision that this commission would make, that we want to explore any option for staying in or getting out of any contract. Again, I'm not talking about this one specifically. You would do well to consult with your attorney and talk about what your options are vis-a-vis that. But I would say that as to the plain language of what Section 8 says, if those things are not done to your satisfaction, it is a very clear line that you can terminate this contract.
Thank you.
Commissioners, one other thing I guess I would say to you, there's been some conversation, and Commissioner, your NDA question made me think of it. There are no other agreements. I said there's no NDA between the city and Lightfield. There are no other agreements between the city and Lightfield Energy at this point. There is no secret agreement. There is no agreement between staff and Lightfield. The only agreement between the city and Lightfield Energy is the land sale contract and the 2 amendments thereto that you all have seen and voted on publicly.
City Attorney Finch, could you touch on, will that development agreement right now would be with Lightfield? If they are getting a tenant, how does that work? Is it more tenant-based, or is it the developer, and then is there another one with a tenant, or how does that potentially work if there's a tenant going into a space?
Some of it would depend on the plan, Mr. Mayor. We'd want to know, for example, is Lightfield intending to retain some of the site and sell the rest? Is it intending to lease the rest? So those details would all be relevant to the analysis. And of course, the owner of the real estate is the one that typically wants the economic development incentives because they typically deal with property taxes at the local level. So that would be very important to know, and that distinction would be important. It would be out of the normal course of past performance by this commission to enter into, to close an agreement for the sale of public land without knowing the final user and without having your development agreement at least well on the way to being negotiated. And preference would be in a project of this size, you all would have seen it and approved it, as opposed to closing on the land and then working on the development agreement. You have been very intentional and very deliberate whenever you have sold public ground for commercial or industrial purposes. The last time was in the North Ottawa Industrial Park, but you have sold other land up there before for industrial development. And when that happens, it's almost always been a process where incentive application, development agreement, closing of the contract kind of all happen simultaneously or contemporaneously with each other. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And then on that, the development agreement, I assume, is that stuff transferable? Once, like thinking about, we did the car dealerships down here, we did some, if they sell that to someone else, do those tax incentives go with the property? Or like a development agreement, is it kind of assigned to the property, or how does that?
The right of assignment is something that can be negotiated in a development agreement. Another incentive that you all use, are familiar with, neighborhood revitalization program, where that tax rebate travels with the property when it's sold. And so some incentives don't allow for a transfer, some federal incentives, I'm thinking like Section 8 housing, and some of the housing incentives don't allow for a transfer, some do. So it would really just depend on the incentive mix, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on that, but yeah, it would depend on the incentive mix that's being asked for and whether the developer negotiates for those incentives to be transferable. But typically, like a real estate tax abatement would go with the land.
And a quick question, I'm not sure if it would be for city manager or for legal counsel, but thanks to Google, I just Googled this real fast. It said, I wasn't sure how long the development agreements usually take to go through the process. And I know that it can vary widely, but just kind of the estimate that Google gave for municipal development agreements is generally 3 to 6 months. And we're at 79 days. Do you know how long that generally takes?
We can get you some historical information on that.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to generalize at this
Yeah.
point. I would tell you that if it's the commission's will to get a development agreement done and close a deal, then staff will do everything they can to get that done in the time that's given us. And we'll be candid with you. A lot of that falls on finance department because it deals with incentives. And then there's obviously a legal component that I deal with. There's also components that deal with community development and in an agreement like this, it would include utilities as well. So there would be a lot of people. So for me to stand up here and make you a promise that it would take this long, I'm not comfortable doing that without all those other departments weighing in. But
Well, I was just thinking, I know for finance, even their portion, there's a public hearing, as we had mentioned, and there's a publishing of that public hearing before even the public hearing. And then, all of these things that take time and, yeah.
I would just add, commissioners, that without getting into the what ifs of what's going on in the future, I would just reiterate what City Attorney Finch said. Like, you five haven't voted on an incentive package.
Sure.
Staff haven't negotiated a development agreement. We've not agreed to sell any utilities to a development at Proximity Park. So, kind of what we reiterated on July 1st is that those steps haven't happened yet, and there's been a lot of talk publicly about the incentives are guaranteed or the water use or the utilities, and frankly, those decisions haven't been made yet. In your contract, your real estate contract affords you, that time and that ability to have those things negotiated. The fact is, staff haven't seen that yet, and we haven't brought anything to you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions for me?
I will, I will say that in December of '24, I voted for this project. I voted to sell this land to Lightfield. And I voted twice to extend Lightfield's deliberation period. And I stand by my votes. I think this would have been a good project, or will be a good project for the city of Ottawa if it moves forward. What I won't do, and I will implore this commission, is if Lightfield doesn't do their due diligence, and we've required that since day one, the contract day one, if they don't do their due diligence, and we don't have, the amount of time that we need and staff needs to review their requests, I'll implore this commission I'm not going to close. I don't want to close. And I would hope that my fellow commissioners would feel the same way. But that's in the future, and we'll see what Lightfield does in the next 30, 60, 90 days, whatever that is. But that's just my feelings at this particular moment.
I agree with that as well. Like, I just feel like, as I mentioned, 79 days it may seem like a lot of time, but it's not a lot of time to get all of the, yes, it'll be legwork for us, but legwork for them as well. And I just, it seems kind of difficult, but I do agree in the sense that we have a contract that, we entered into, and it is in the process right now. We should honor that. But if we're selling it on estimates or just guesses or anything like that, I would also, not be in favor of that, but waiting and seeing what happens over the next 79 days.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's too many variables in this equation. We don't have enough information to make an appropriate decision, the way I look at it. And I think the more informed the decision, the better the decision. So I agree with what's been said. And also, really, too, we're in the middle of budget season. Our financial department is already strained as it is, putting together numbers for us to review for the budget. And so I can see what you're saying there. It'd be quite a strain for this to come to fruition, in my opinion, but we'll wait and see what they send us. So, if they do.
And City Attorney Finch, on that, kind of to that note, that development agreement, is that something when that is, negotiated by staff, is it a 2-week notification before public hearing? So would we see that kind of rough draft and then have to announce public hearing, then see it again? Or how would negotiation, if they say they come in and they say, I want X, and we say, no, you can only have Y, how does that kind of negotiation typically?
So the public hearing requirement is part of the incentive application process, not part of the development agreement process. So our economic development policy does not provide a specific time frame. We typically try to aim for 20 days on public hearings that we have. So that's what it would be on the incentive application component, the public hearing that goes with that. For the development agreement, there's no public hearing required. It would come to a future agenda. You all could discuss if you had revisions or changes that you wanted. Those could be made, of course, and sent back to the developer for their consideration.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think, I mean, as has been said, right now, I have found, I've been sent the CBRE listing, and that was the first I had seen kind of the plan for what may go there. So until we actually see something for me, especially like I would want to know what's going there, have some details in that development agreement and the information from you guys. So, we'll look forward to seeing if that comes in over the next 60 days, 30 days, hopefully, or 2 weeks to give them time to work through that with us. That does. Any other questions, comments for city attorney, city manager, or staff? Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners.
That'll take us to item 8, public comments.
We have 9 registered. We'll start with Greg Hernandez.
I personally know some of these commissioners here today. For the others, I will formally introduce myself. My name is Gregory Hernandez. I was born, raised, and currently live in Ottawa, Kansas at 1024 North Mulberry, Ottawa, Kansas. Remember this phrase: we are following standard operating procedures. This phrase is used to exclude you and your opinion. It does not invite inclusion of your issue or identify who is responsible for addressing your incident or problem. Now, for the record, I'm listing the following physical challenges I live every day of my life. I have early symptoms of Alzheimer's or dementia. I currently experience short-term memory loss. I have arthritis in my knees and hips. I have difficulty walking. I have early symptoms of hearing loss. My hands shake, so I find it very difficult to write with a pen and pencil. I currently have very little knowledge of computer systems and their programs. I currently live alone, and I'm just a cranky old man. The issues I have listed are very common for most of the elderly citizens, and specifically for the elderly citizens of Ottawa. It is very difficult for a man my age to admit their limitations, but in today's argument, it is a very important matter. From my recent experience, the Human Resources Department, the City Manager, and the Ottawa City Commission are mistreating the old and disabled citizens of Ottawa. I've recently tried to file a complaint against a city employee with the Director of Human Resources. Since I have never filed a complaint with the city, I had to ask questions. The Human Resources Department insisted that I follow their standard operating procedure. The following is a description of how these standard operating procedures are attempting to discourage the residents of Ottawa from filing a complaint. The HR department shows a blank writing pad or full tablet and a pen and directs you to write down a description in detail of the incident. That's all HR provided. Since you do not know the names of those involved, you have to ask questions so that you can list the people involved. When you try to explain your limitations, they tell you the following. They say your speaking voice is too loud. When you ask too many questions, their voice gets loud. The HR department has you sit in a chair with no writing table or surface. Is that me? Is that the end of mine? No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's the 3 minutes, Greg.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
Was that the 3 minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sandy Music. Sorry.
My name is Sandy Music, and I reside in Ottawa. My friend Tina and I secured over 100 petitions for the hopeful ballot that we're going to get. And we visited with all these people from different walks of life, from young to old. Not one of them wants this data center. Not one of them had anything good to say about it. They felt that when you signed that agreement and didn't even bring it to the public, that was complete disregard for their feelings, for their finances. They felt it was just sad that you didn't even have the time to bring it, something that important that's going to shape Ottawa, the future for our grandchildren. They're just not happy at all. And I have so many friends that are worried about paying their taxes. And you're giving some company that's a billionaire company up to 75% tax abatement? That's sick. How many of you in this room got your tax statement? I have received 4 of them. Every one of them went up. We're not getting any help. I have senior friends that don't even know if they can keep their houses. We all feel that you are abandoning us and not listening to us in any way. And we're just asking for your help. And as I've said before, I pray every night for this, day and night. And I just don't know what's going to happen. And I think if it comes through, it's going to ruin Ottawa, our beautiful, beautiful city.
Thank you, Sandy.
Barbara Wonderly.
Barbara Wonderly, Ottawa. Aaron Brockovich says residents living near some large data centers have reported noticeable changes in the wildlife around their communities. According to accounts shared with her, people have said their animals they once regularly saw have disappeared. The animals are gone, the birds are gone. She also said residents describe changes in established wildlife movement and migration patterns after major data center developments were built nearby. Brockovich connected those observations to the broader environmental changes that often come with large industrial construction. That can include clearing trees and vegetation, removing habitat, introducing continuous mechanical noise, increasing traffic, and altering local water conditions. Those changes can affect wildlife even without a single obvious cause. Birds, mammals, and other animals may avoid areas where habitat has been fragmented, noise has increased, or access to food and water has changed. But the reports are still observations from residents. The interview did not establish that data centers directly caused the wildlife declines or changes in migration patterns. But residents are increasingly asking whether wildlife and habitat should be part of that conversation too. I'm also going to read these statements quoted from a post by Michael Thrift. America belongs to we the people. Government officials, you work for the people. You work for the people. We the people don't work for you. Do not confuse representation with accountability. If we send somebody to the United States Congress, City Hall, or anywhere else, that person needs to understand something from day one. You represent we the people. We the people do not belong to you. You can be questioned. You can be criticized. You can be challenged. You can be voted out. This is the United States of America. We have allowed political culture where leaders are treated as untouchable and criticism is treated as disloyalty. Our government is not you or your family's property. It belongs to we the people. If you cannot handle American citizens exercising their rights, then you have no business holding public office in the USA. So today I say to this commission, thank you for allowing us to comment on and criticize you about your votes on the data center without getting silenced or arrested. Thank you. Please hear our voices and be the hero, not the zero. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
James Wonderly.
Well, I want to follow that. I want to approach it from a different standpoint. I'm a mechanical engineer by my background, and I view this whole project as a four-legged chair. The first leg is the power, second, water, third, noise, and the fourth, environmental. And all four are critical, and you have to approach each of them independently. I'm going to talk a little bit about the environmental first. A lot of us talk about the wastewater that could occur from this, the other damage that may happen. My biggest concern is decommissioning. These projects, we know now that computer technology is advancing at a very rapid rate. These projects may be outdated in 5 years, 10 years. then what? Are we going to be sitting here with this massive building with grass growing up around it? We have no way to get rid of it. So I implore you to consider some kind of a performance bond for that ultimatum. If the project is done right, which I think it can be, where we have good consideration for power and water consumption and the noise levels, the environmental aspect can be taken care of as well. And that decommissioning may not have to happen in 10 years. Maybe it won't happen in 50 years. So back to the idea, number one, of power. There are about 4,500 to 5,000 data centers in the United States. And about 20% of those data centers operate off of a power source called combustion turbines. 80% of it relies on the power grid. Now, the people of Ottawa sent around and signed a petition to limit that amount of power that came off the grid. That was a hell of an effort. So what's going to happen with that? The city engineer, Mr. Engineer, didn't address that petition. I kind of would have liked to have heard what that means to this project going forward. But if 20% of the existing data centers use combustion turbines, there's where we get into a huge problem with noise, pollution, and permitting, because Elon Musk just recently purchased a company called APR, and they are the United States' largest builder of trailer-mounted power generation. I don't think he's putting his money into it for no reason. And that is the cheapest, quickest method to put power to a facility such as this, especially when you're talking about limiting the amount of power that's coming off the grid. So if we're limited to 25, by the petition, to 25 megawatts coming off the grid, that means the balance has to be put in place on site within the walls or within the fences of the project.
Thank you, James. Sorry,
That's
you hit your
time?
3 minutes. Yes, thank you.
Oh, I was just getting warmed up. I want to say one more thing, can I? This city initiated a project back in 1967 and installed the first combined cycle gas turbine in the world. It's still sitting down here. And it was a bold effort, and I need you guys to be bold. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Daniel White.
I'm Dean White. I live in Ottawa. Good evening. I'm here to address Confluence and the new comprehensive plan. The city hired Confluence to help develop a comprehensive plan for Ottawa. Not Confluence's plan, not the staff's plan, but Ottawa's plan. And after receiving the most recent project schedule from our city planner, I believe this commission needs to start asking some very direct questions. Where are we actually in the process? Which public engagement requirements have been completed and which ones have not? Where was the community listening event? When was the public review and then comment period? Where is the draft the citizens of Ottawa were supposed to have an opportunity to review? And most importantly, when does the general public get put back in the discussion? Now, I know that the Plan Commission and the City Commission are scheduled to have a joint meeting at the end of this month to discuss this topic. And I'm glad that you're going to have that discussion. But here's the problem. Once again, the general public does not get a seat at that table. The Planning Commission gets to discuss it. The City Commission gets to discuss it. The staff gets to participate. Confluence would have gone to participate. But what about the people who actually have to live underneath this plan? When do we get to participate? Sitting in an audience watching the government officials discuss our future is not the same thing as being included in the process. Commissioners, I'm asking you not to simply I'm asking you to simply accept a schedule and assume that it was completed. Ask questions. Confluence works for the City of Ottawa, and you represent the people of Ottawa. Ask Confluence, what public engagement requirements have actually been completed? What remains incomplete? What happened to opportunities for public review and comment? And what are you going to do to put the citizens of Ottawa back into this process before this plan moves any further? Because public participation isn't a courtesy, it's part of a process. We've already seen why asking questions matters. This commission recently discussed Proximity Park, and some of you expressed that you may need some more information before you are comfortable with moving forward. And that's good. That is exactly what you are supposed to do. If you don't have enough information, get it. Ask questions, demand answers. Verify the information before making the decision. I'm asking you to apply the exact same standard to Confluence. Bring them in. Ask questions. Get the answers on record.
Thank you, Daniel.
Tina Bennett.
Tina Benoit is my name. I'm a resident of Ottawa, and my comment is that today I'm apologizing that I failed to see the act when the data center actually was being planned in 2024, and I take responsibility for that failure. But now I realize a citizen cannot always assume that their representatives have the best interests of the people at heart, and we need to be vigilant in what is going on at City Hall. I didn't realize how much. The effort to rid the city of Ottawa of the data center threat has been it's been frustrating endeavor at moments, and the major frustration that I have experienced has been the silence from the City Council. I think it should have been made public, all of these questions that we've seen today, way back when. But also, there has been no feedback mechanism coming from the City Council to the citizens. None, nothing. It's been silence. We have no idea what you think. We don't know what you know. We don't know much of anything, actually, from our perspective. There's a lot of assumptions that can be made, but a lot of times they're wrong. And it ends up breeding anger, distrust, and secrecy. And that's exactly what's happened in this case. And and I'm really sorry to see that happen, because we should have far more confidence in our city council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tina.
Rich Colson.
A conflict of interest is defined as a conflict between the private interests and the official responsibilities of a person in a position of trust. At least two of you have a potential conflict of interest regarding the AI data center proposed for Proximity Park. Mr. Crowley owns a local electric contracting company that may very well be, at least to some degree, hired to perform tasks during the construction phase. That is a potential conflict of interest. The other is Blaine Finch, who sits in a non-elected position as city attorney. Mr. Finch, while performing his duties to the citizens of Ottawa, is also employed by other businesses and other communities. In addition, he acts as a lobbyist for more than a dozen private businesses, including ITC Great Plains, Kansas Contractors Association, and Kansas Electric Cooperatives. ITC Great Plains, for example, is a company that specializes in small and major power transmission projects, a task that will most certainly be in the forefront of any AI data center construction. The mere possibility that Mr. Finch could be representing private interests that may come into play in a project openly resisted by the citizens of Ottawa, Kansas, is the very essence of a conflict of interest. Mr. Finch should step down as the city attorney, or at the very least recuse himself from any dealings with the Proximity Park project. Mr. Finch stood here only a few minutes ago and told every single person in this room, no member of this commission has signed an NDA or any such agreement. I have here a response from one of the commissioners, an email response. Quote, some have accused us of lack of transparency, but being involved with eco-devo projects in the past, they wanted us to sign NDLs, which is normal protocol. Did Mr. Finch just lie to us? I have here an excerpt of the organizational flow chart of the city of Ottawa. In yellow are the citizens. In pink is the city attorney. Some of you are telling me to flip it upside down. Is it really upside down? You need to go.
Thank you, Rich.
Michael Lewis.
Commissioners, Mayor, audience. First of all, appreciate Mr. Crowley, Ms. Allen for owning up, stepping up, and having the guts to stand behind their decision. I do see, from your perspective, years back, this community does need money. It does need advancement. But I still see the side of at what cost. I do want to piggyback on Mr. Wonderly. I am curious about the petition as well, and hopefully that can be brought up in the new comments today as to can this stop it in its tracks? There's provision in there that does outlaw pending plans. The discussion earlier from Mr. Finch regarding Section 5A and the amendments, to back it up to when this body had the discussion to make that second amendment, originally Lightfield wanted to extend it out till December. But there was discussion among this body saying that's too long. Let's do 6 months instead. Well, obviously, whoever handled the contract made it actually be 10 months or till October instead of till today. So there's an extra bonus 3 months they got out of that. Potentially, I'd recommend this body seek outside counsel to get a second set of eyes on this contract, if it potentially can be voided at this point, if you do so choose so. Reason being, when you amend the contract, there are clauses in the contract saying the original contract holds, you're amending things in the contract. That's why it's an amendment. And potentially look and see if it's just the dates being amended. Beyond that, there was some members not present when I mentioned the benefits of the project if this project moves forward. I do recommend a payment in lieu of taxes or a revenue floor to guarantee a minimum baseline of amount of money, because going back off of the projections, those are on current mill rates. When you add assessment, mill rates tend to come down, meaning the projected income isn't as good as it seems. So with that, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Michael.
Kendra Titus.
I heard some information today that I didn't know about, and I thought it was very interesting. Also, I do not get a vote in this because I am in the county, but I feel that this affects the county, and the county should be involved in this going forward. But this is a very large-scale development, and I think they should be involved in it also in the decisions, because this directly affects me. I am close enough that I would have to move. The pastor got up here earlier, and right before I left my house, that was the exact scripture I got. And then when I was in my car, I got another scripture, and so I'm going to read it to you guys, because sometimes the wisdom comes from the Lord, and it is in his word. And this is Psalms 88. Justice and judgment are habitation of thy throne. Mercy and truth shall go before thy face. Blessed is the people that know the joyful sound. They shall walk, O Lord, in the might of thy covenants. In thy name they shall rejoice all the day. In their righteousness shall they exalt. For thou art glory in their strength, in their favor, and our horn shall exalt. For the Lord is our defense, and the Holy One of Israel is the King. Then they shall speak in a vision of the Holy One, and says, I have laid help upon one that is mighty. I have exalted one and chosen out of the people. Just remember, this United States was founded on God. We are founded on freedom, freedom for all. We need to stand up for our rights, and you can't take away our ability to enjoy our lives while we're here. And sometimes something that may look really, really good, like a data center to bring in money, it's actually the devil, and it's very evil. So you guys need to, like I always say, I pray for wisdom for all of you. I thank all of you for your service. It's very hard what you're going through, but I just pray you do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you all. That will take us to item 9, declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Hearing none, they'll take us to item 10, unfinished business. Item 10A, consider selection of downtown master plan consultant. City Clerk Sherman and City Manager Motti will present a recommendation for selection of a preferred consultant firm for the downtown master plan and request authorization to negotiate the final scope, schedule, fee, and contract terms. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The item before you is consideration of selection of a consultant for the downtown master plan. The action requested is not approval of a final contract amount, but to select a preferred consultant to authorize staff to begin negotiating the final scope, schedule, and fee and contract terms. The RFP was released on March 18th and proposals were due back on May 5th. Staff then worked in May and June through the review process, and the top 3 firms presented to the City Commission on July 8th. The item was then discussed at the July 29th study session. The proposals were evaluated based upon project approach and understanding, team experience and qualifications, public engagement strategy, and schedule and capacity. The review committee included city staff, Ottawa Main Street, and Ottawa Chamber of Commerce. After reviewing the proposals, the presentations, the commission feedback, Olson stood out as the strongest overall fit for Ottawa's downtown planning goals. There are 4 main reasons for the recommendation. First, their proposal was implementation oriented. They focused on priorities, phasing, funding strategies, and clear steps, which is important because we don't want a plan that just sits on a shelf. Second, the traffic and mobility component was strong. Downtown decisions related to parking, pedestrian access, bicycle movement, wayfinding, accessibility, and streetscape design all needs to be evaluated together. Third, Olson demonstrated relevant downtown planning and revitalization experience in Kansas and other regional communities. Fourth, they brought an integrated multidisciplinary team, which consulted planning, placemaking, public engagement, market strategy, and funding expertise, working as one team together. Staff believes Olson's approach gives the city the best opportunity to create a practical, community-supported plan that can be used for day-to-day implementation. Staff is recommending the City Commission select Olson as a preferred consultant and authorize staff negotiate the final scope, schedule, fees, and contract terms. For financial context, the proposals had different total amounts, but they also had different timelines, scopes, staffing levels, deliverables, and level of service. This is why this slide shows the approximate monthly equivalent based on each firm's proposed duration. So Olson was 13 months, Barlett and West was 7 months, and RDG was 9 months. The monthly equivalent is not provided for context. It's only for context. This does not represent a monthly fee for them. It was just the best way that we could break down that financial proposals since they were all different scopes of services. The project aligns with several of the city's strategic priorities. From an infrastructure and stewardship standpoint, the plan will help coordinate streets, utilities, parking, mobility, accessibility, and future capital investment. From a safety standpoint, it allows us to evaluate traffic, pedestrian movement, bicycle access, wayfinding, and accessibility as one connected system. From an economic development standpoint, the plan supports downtown business vitality, reinvestment, projects, and long-term economic development. And from a quality of life and community engagement standpoint, the plan centers around public input, placemaking, community identity, walkability, and accessible public spaces. To summarize, staff believes Olson is the best overall fit for the review process, the proposal, the presentation, the study session discussions, and the city's desire for an actionable plan. And at that, I would stand for any questions from the commission.
how many total proposals did we receive? I know we picked the top 3 to look at, but how many proposals did we end up getting? Do you recall?
We had 18 proposals.
That tells me a lot about our community, that many people out there want to invest some money to send us a proposal. First of all, time out spent for that many of them, so I didn't realize that many. I thought it was about a dozen, but 18, that's impressive. So thank you for that information.
And I'm not sure, I don't think you addressed this already. Have we worked with Olson before?
The city of Ottawa has not.
Okay, thank you.
Could you touch on it, maybe Director Lantis, where, for something like this, for this plan, where this typically comes from, the funding for it in the budget?
So I believe that initially we talked about a combination of potentially the use of some transient guest tax and some capital improvement fund dollars, depending on the timing and the balances in those funds at the time when the plan is completed.
Thank you.
Do we have any kind of a timeline to start?
We would still have to negotiate that in
So,
the
okay.
contract and the scope and the fee and the timeline of that. This is
Okay.
just selection of
Right.
the consultant.
When we had the interviews that evening, Olson kind of stood out to me. They were energetic, brought a lot of individuals down, so I think they're going to have a lot of interaction with our community. So I was, pretty impressed with their interview. Saying that, I'd approve item 10 on our agenda.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? And I would just second that. We had a comment tonight talking about the public interaction, those types of things for them to voice. And I think one of the things that really jumped out to me about Confluence was town halls. They're setting up tents, the car show at events downtown. Like they, at least in the presentation, had those steps to find out what the people want downtown to look like. Do they want it 4-lane? Do they want it 2-lane? Do they want what? And so I think that is great. And so with no further questions, may I have roll call, please?
How do you vote, Mayor Pro Tem Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Layden?
Yes.
And Mayor Clayton?
I vote yes. Motion passes. Thank you. That'll take us to item 11A, new business, 2026 grant program mid-year report. City Clerk Sherman will present the 2026 mid-year grant report, which provides a summary of city grant activity through July 31st, 2026.
Thank you. As you stated, I'm here today to talk about the 2026 mid-year grant report. This is covering activity from January 1st through July 31st. And rather than walk through every individual application, I wanted to get a broader look at the grant program, talk about how much activity is taking place, where those efforts are occurring across the organization, what we've secured so far, and what's still pending. This is just a receive and file, so no action is necessary. Throughout the first 7 months of 2026, the grant activity has remained very active across the city. As of July 31st, we have 40 distinct grant efforts, representing approximately 10.83 in ask. Of that 10.83, 3.75 has been awarded to the city. Of that 3.75, that has a grant match of $250,000. I would note that any pending opportunity or pending grant request matches are not included in that. That is just grants that we've actually secured. So our match on that is about $250,000. In addition, we have about 33 future opportunities that are not represented in that 40 between now and the end of the year that we're looking at taking advantage of. One thing I did want to note is we did a couple of requests, appropriation requests to Representative David's office and Moran's office. Those are only counted as one. Those aren't counted as two requests in these numbers. One thing I wanted to review this year is grant work is a lot more than just writing that application and hitting submit. I think a lot of times when we think of a grant application, we think just writing it and hitting submit, but it really begins with research. Our grant team reviews grant notices, attends webinars, looks for opportunities that align with the city priorities. When we identify something that may be a fit, We work with those departments to identify an eligible project. We reach out to the funder, have conversations about our project, and then look at the match and see if that match can realistically be met. From there, the departments work together to develop that application. We usually start with building our budget, researching programming, collecting data, gathering quotes, identifying any community partners, and gathering that support for the application. And then we submit the application. Once we submit that, we monitor that, and we follow up with any questions they may have. They may want us to relook at our project and move that around, or they may be able to fund a portion of that project and not fund the whole project. And so we're really monitoring those applications. From there, we get a decision. If we're not funded, we try to set up a meeting to get feedback and to be able to grow and improve that application for future cycles. If we are awarded, that's really when the work starts. We have everything from grant agreements to procurement and bidding, project management, partner coordination, reimbursement requests, progress reports, final reporting, and ultimately the closeout of that. So it's really a team effort. We have a great grant team, but grant coordination may run through the city clerk's office, but successful applications depend heavily on the expertise and involvement of every department throughout the city.
City Clerk Sherman, before you go on real quick, if you go back one slide on the first section, what's a NOFO?
Oh, notice the funding opportunity.
Okay.
Notice the funding opportunity.
Sorry.
Yep. So that is usually on federal or state grants, that can be anything from a 60 to 150-page document that lists every single requirement, every single anything that you could think about that grant. And so we get to dig down deep into those and read every single line to ensure that our program would be a good fit for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the challenges with grant management is that all these efforts are moving on different timelines at the same time. So we currently have 7 applications in development, 11 that have been submitted or are waiting on decisions, 12 that have been awarded or funded, and 10 that were not awarded. So at the same time, as we're monitoring these 33 future projects, we're also monitoring the 40 active grant cycles we have going on. There's really no single grant season. One department may be implementing while another is waiting for a decision, and another one may be preparing an application, or that may be happening within the exact same department. They may have 3, 5, 6 grant opportunities going on at once. This active portfolio shows our request from a financial standpoint. So currently pending, we have 11 efforts, a request out for a total of $4.89 million. We have 12 grants that were ultimately funded or awarded. Our request amount was $3.767, and we actually received $3.753. So that's about a $14,000 difference there. And that's due to an OMA request that we requested 25 for, and we received under that. So that's what the difference is there. We also have about 436,000 currently in development, getting ready to be submitted. So, and then at approximately 1.73 million in applications that weren't awarded. And we don't view those categories as unsuccessful work. Some programs are extremely competitive. Some decisions are based on eligibility and funding. And so whenever possible, we use that feedback from those applications to make our next submission stronger. One of the things I wanted to talk about is how broadly our grants program reaches the city operations. Public safety currently represents the largest number of individual grant efforts with 10, followed by OMA and arts and cultures with 8. We also have significant activities supporting parks, trails and golf, water and utilities, airport transportation and engineering, fire, and community and tourism. These are counts rather than dollar amounts intentionally. A single airport or utility application can be worth millions of dollars and would make some of the smaller department efforts look insignificant on a dollar chart. The number of efforts gives us a better picture of just how citywide this work really is. Ultimately, these applications are supporting the same broad priorities the Commission is working towards: infrastructure, safety, economic development, and quality of life. So what have we secured? Through July 31st, we've secured 12 grant efforts reaching out to $3.7 million. Of that, 3.2 has been for airport improvements, including taxiway reconstruction and improvements. 350 has been for flood resistance for the levee study. OMA is right over $100,000 for kitchen improvements and general operations. Our Parks Department has secured over $75,000 for trail work, Forest Park sidewalks, and signage and marketing. And police and fire round that up with some smaller awards for support traffic enforcement and system alert notifications. So as I said, between now and the end of the year is probably the greatest potential of change for this program. We currently have 11 distinct applications totaling $4.89 million. About 58% of that represents water and utilities, with projects as the AMI water meter, the river crossing updates, water line extension to the airport, and the river lift station generator. We have an additional 30% representing our transportation, parks, and trails. That's 19th to 23rd Street sidewalks, golf course paths, Prairie Spirit Trail repaving, and then to round it out with 12% with public safety and fire for police de-escalation and range improvements, firefighter equipment, Step Plus, and bulletproof vest. Some of these decisions may come back relatively soon. Some of them more federal, definitely can take some time as administration priorities change. We may have a grant submitted and priorities might change, and that might sit for a little bit. So as awards are awarded, we'll definitely come back to the commission and give you updates. The larger story, I hope this report is that this is just one tool we're using to strategically advance projects that the city has identified as priorities. First, they provide leverage. External funding advances planned projects while reducing the full burden on local tax dollars. Second, this is a citywide collaborative effort. Departments identify needs, provide technical support, while grant coordination supports research, writing, and reporting. And third, it's a continuous pipeline. At any given time, we're researching opportunities, writing applications, waiting on decisions, implementing awards, and closing out completed grants. I'd just like to finish this out by saying thank you so much to our grant team. I know you hear me talk about grants a lot, but all of our department heads, assistant superintendents, it's really, really a collaborative effort. They spend a lot of hours on webinars, answering my questions, teaching me about their programs and what's happening so that I'm able to write that grant request. And so it really is a large collaborative effort, and I just appreciate everybody's support. And with that, I would stand with any questions.
That was actually going to be one of my questions, was who is on the grant team, but as you explained, but I also want to thank you because I know a lot of the writing goes on to you, and I know that you're being humble and not trying to take all the credit for it, but I know a good part of the work also lands on you. So thank you for all of that work and all of those numbers, 40 unique grant opportunities just this year, and we're not done yet. So I appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you.
I too appreciate your talent and your gift for writing grants and obviously the success as well. So I'm just glad you're on our team. So thank you for your hard work.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that as well. You know, when I started on commission several years ago, the change that we have had in so many of these ways, you know, the finance team and our investment income that we're seeing these days and the work that they put in that, and you and your team, you know, as you mentioned, $3.75 million is nothing to balk at for the work that you put in. And I am sure you are underselling the amount of work you put into those, and probably after 5 p.m. and when you shouldn't be working on them. But thank you for the work that you do for that. And, you know, I think so many of these things are noticeable. We have Airport Fun Day coming up soon. I should know the date. It's the 23rd.
22nd.
22nd. I was close. And so, you know, that's a great time to go out and see the airport. You know, there's a lot of talk about, we forget as the citizens that the airport is the city of Ottawa's. So it's great to go out there and, you know, be a part of the airplane poll, be a part of the things they have, those events, and see, you know, the amenity that we do have in town, and now are able to do some work out there thanks to your work. So,
Absolutely. We have great amenities in town, and we're trying to use some grant resources to be able to expand those.
any other
No,
questions, comments?
All I can do is say the same thing you guys have already all said. Now, Melissa's great at what she does, so we're lucky to have her.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And commissioners, I'll just add on to that. I've been in 3 different communities in public service for about 9 years. And you know what Melissa and the grant team has been able to do here is definitely the exception, not the rule. There are larger communities that don't do as well on grants than us. And it takes a ton of work to get these grants applied for. But, you know, sometimes the best tax relief is getting that money from elsewhere into this community. So it's been really impressive to me. And I think what people don't realize is sometimes a $10,000 grant takes almost as much work as a $1 million grant. And City Clerk Sherman treats those equally and cares about them just the same on top of all of our other duties as city clerk. So I just want to commend the City Clerk Sherman and the team here for the work they've done on grants.
Thank you. Thank you both. That'll take us to item 11B, quarterly report and active project update. Review of second quarter 2026 department reports and active projects with City Manager Motti.
So commissioners, kind of as usual, and I'm happy to answer any questions on the quarterly reports, but we have all of our department heads here. You've been given the reports as part of your packet, and happy to answer any questions or highlight any areas there, or have any department heads come up to the podium and speak.
I just want to mention about our auditorium. I see Tiffany's here. I didn't realize we do weddings at OMA as well. I see that now, so that's expanded the potential for our use of that. You want to come to the microphone? I'd like to hear talk about the kitchen a little bit and what's involved in the kitchen work that you've got started. I think it's a brand new program, and it's exciting to hear it get started.
And just for reference, 5 weddings on the book in 2026. So it's a new thing. So our kitchen project is we're about to the point where we can really start seeing some movement on that now that we have secured funding. We received last year a grant that purchased a lot of that equipment that we needed for the kitchen. One of the major things was that commercial hood and ventilation system. We were able to do that work with a grant from the Kansas Department of Agriculture. Then earlier this year, we announced that we received $50,000 from Blue Cross Blue Shield through the Pathways Project. And just recently, we announced the Goppert Foundation has closed our gap of the funding that we needed in $57,000 to get our incubator kitchen started. So we're working on those RFPs that will be going out to get that work happening. But we really see this space as benefiting the entire community. Selfishly, of course, we have some programming ideas that we would like to do, but we've been working with our community partners at the library, ECAN, Hope House, and beyond to help so that we can use this kitchen to help address food insecurity issues in our community, have some training, some classes that they can utilize that space for. We see it being beneficial for these weddings and other events that we're booking as well. The sky is limitless of what can be, this kitchen can be used for. Individuals will be able to rent it to can, bake, whatever their needs will be. So we will continue those conversations with our community partners so that we can make sure that we're using that space and it's available to them for whatever needs they might have.
Thank you.
You bet.
Do you want to keep rolling with yours, Stephen? I'm sure you've got a list.
Oh. Well, I just noticed about the crime down. Again, Weingarten, I'm just going to get to that here somewhere. It's always good to see that as a good report. Oh yeah, 5-year trend, community crime down significantly. Again, that's something that when companies look to expand or relocate here, what's one of the things they look at is, well, what's the crime rate in this community? And so I think that's a very important thing that we continue to work toward and improve every year we can. So I don't know if you have any comments on that or not, or I'll turn the microphone over to you if you want to.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Yeah, that credit and work goes to the officers that are out there working every day to protect and serve the community. Without them, we can't do it. Without our community and the citizens reporting and being our eyes and ears when the officers aren't around are really what helps us all out. And certainly our investment in technology, people, and prioritizing where we focus our work comes from what the community wants. And that engagement is ongoing at any of our special events we host, our public presentations, our Community Public Safety Academy, all of those public offices where we get input from the community, give them an opportunity to have that. The build out on our website, huge resources out there, our community crime map that's updated 24 hours a day where citizens can sign up to receive crime alerts every day, every week, every month, whatever they want, delivered right to their email inbox, or see that live on the website, has been beneficial for an awareness level. I say this to my staff quite often, historic crime lows may eventually end. Those peaks and valleys have happened through my 30-plus years, and certainly they will again. Historically, this year across the United States, especially in major metropolitan communities, violent crime is significantly down compared to other years, where ours is ticking up just a little bit from our historic lows of last year. So while we'd love to continue that downward trend, there eventually will be a floor where that'll come up. But the overall number of our crime is so low that statistical percentage increase may look large, but the actual number in a given year is fairly low. So as long as we can continue to do that, and certainly thank you for all of your support and that funding and investment in us to make sure that we can deliver that service is beneficial. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate too, our police officers out in the community. I know many times there'll be lemonade stand and you'll see them out there buying lemonade from the kids. I appreciate that. But also I see here, there was a dodgeball game at Sunflower School. I won't ask you who won that, but unless you want to volunteer.
I don't think I'll volunteer who won that. Even if we did squeak out a win, I'm sure the next day we paid the ultimate prize.
So, yeah, no doubt.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would go for fire. I didn't know if Chief Dillon was here. I couldn't see over there. Or hey, Stuart, you're here for him, I guess. So, just as a question, you may not know. Obviously, I don't know if you were prepared to answer questions. Looking at calls for service, we had an increase from 24 to 25, 1.9% seems. I don't know what a natural growth rate would be on that. That seems pretty reasonable. 25 to 26, we jumped to 13%. Have you seen anything? Do you know anything, I guess, that would say, are we doing more mutual aid? Or is it we're just getting more phone calls?
Yeah, so we are doing more mutual aid, and we live in a growing elderly community, so it's going to naturally go up. But we are doing more in the county as well, yes.
Okay. And I did see, because 762 of the calls were for medical. You guys, if someone calls 911, says, hey, I've fallen, can't get up, whatever, do you always respond with EMS as well? Is that typical?
Yes, as long as dispatches.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. But typically, we will go, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. I guess that, obviously makes sense. And we're glad you guys are going on the calls, but that's a significant increase in your guys' workload. And then I didn't know if Director Finch, you are. If these questions may be for you. I know you obviously started your role towards the end of quarter two. So maybe anecdotal. I didn't know if you could come up and answer a few questions just kind of on trends that you're seeing. One of my first questions was looking in here. It showed we had 363 plans reviewed, and then 16 remodel permits, 7 new homes. And so I was curious if there's a lot of plans that come in that people decide to not do the project. Is that kind of pre-development meetings, or do you know? Because this would have been the quarter before you.
Yeah, really from what I've seen this part, most of it's really being farmed out to consultants and things like that to do that just because or to do those reviews because of shorting staff. I was talking to somebody earlier, coming from a larger community, it sheds light on here that it's amazing staff across the board does more with less. That has been amazing to me, to be honest with you. This amount of work as everybody helps each other out, tries to push things through the system, tries to avoid those delays and stuff. There are some things that we're working on and having discussions with, particularly in the community development group, about trying to do more things in-house versus farming those out, will help reduce costs, to actually speed that process up. There's plans to try to meet with some contractors here in the next month to kind of see what their perspective is from their side. I've really kind of used the last month to try to understand about the city of Ottawa processes and those kind of things, and kind of get some feedback from staff. But seeing what they do is amazing. It's overwhelming, to be honest with you. So it's be very proud of those staff. So
Well, thank you. And actually, you may be able to say,
Can I just share just one thing?
yes, no, go ahead.
So when I do those reports, and Vic wasn't like totally here fully for those reports, so I just want to share what those plans actually include. They do include the neighborhood revitalization applications. They include our like lot split applications. They include like our boundary line adjustment application. So those are all of our plans reviewed. So it's not all of plans that you would naturally see or the planning commission would naturally see. So that's why you would see quite a few plans reviewed.
Yeah.
And some of those might not actually be approved as well, because that would include the neighborhood revitalization as well.
For that. Okay.
So
Thank you, guys. And thank you. And
hopefully that
yeah, no, I wasn't sure if those were individual plans or if that was the number of times we've looked at a plan. So, yeah, no, that's fine. We've got Q3 we'll have later this year. So thank you for that. So those were the only questions I had on quarterly reports.
I was happy to see we're at 53% on sales tax only halfway through the year. So that's better than being 47%. So that's good. People are shopping local, hopefully. So.
Any other questions for staff? I guess I may just call it wasn't on quarter. Do you want to wait to talk about Forest Park until city manager comments, or would you want to talk about it in Q2 update? Sidewalks. Yeah. I don't know if it matters to talk about it now or if it works better during. Okay, if you want to come now, since we're already pulling department heads, I guess if that works for you. Yeah. Did you know it was coming? Oh. I was done, I forgot. Could you just touch on and kind of explain what it's through shelters 4, 6, 8, kind of which ones those are? I mean, I don't know if they're numbered. I've never paid attention, or what those sidewalks for ADA in Forest Park, like what that kind of looks like.
Yep. So we have 9 shelter houses in Forest Park. 6 of those 9 have sidewalks already going to them. So shelter 4, 6, and 8 would be the one that goes just south of the horseshoe pits. That would be number 4. Number 6 would be the one that sits back by the dog park. And then number 8 would be the one farthest north on the north side of the park, right by the small playground. It's just on the north side of the park. So all 3 of those, we've been looking for a long time, trying to find out a way to get sidewalks extended out to those. It's quite a bit of distance between the parking lot and those shelter houses, and then it's trying to being able to make those accessible. One of them has a pretty significant ditch that it's got to go across. But we were fortunate enough, Melissa was up here sharing a lot of great news about some of the grants that we received. The AARP, we successfully received a grant from them that's going to pay for a large majority of the sidewalk installation to those remaining 3 shelter houses. So once they are all completed, which I would anticipate being done by the end of the year, you won't see anything happening prior to the shows just because we don't want any interference with those large shows. But once September is finished, we would look for the contractor to start work, and I don't think it would be odd to say that yes, it would be finished by the end of the year. But that would mean that all of our shelter houses would now have an accessible way to access them.
Mayor.
Awesome. Yeah.
I just want to add on to that. This is a perfect example. We tried 3 years to get this grant from AARP, and we finally received the grant funding. We had put a bid out on those sidewalks to see what the project would be so we could write the grant application. We get the grant, it comes back, and our bids are about $6,000 more than what the grant funding was. And so DJ and the grant team got together and really started strategically thinking outside the box and how we could cover the remaining funds. And the car show stepped up, and a private member is going to do $3,000, and the car show is going to do $3,000 to help us complete those sidewalks. So definitely a special shout out to the car show for helping us complete that grant work. But just another example of how really community partners have to come together to make these grants possible.
I'm particularly glad the ARP is helping out our community. I'm glad to see my membership dues are coming back to the community. So
We
that's
thank you
good to
for that.
hear.
Thank you for that. With no other questions or comments, that'll take us to item 11C. Consider counsel, sorry, I wrote it down, I think. Consider legal counsel for petition with City Manager Motti.
So Mayor and Commissioners, I just wanted to say that the county clerk did go ahead and notify the city of a petition for a proposed ordinance. And I just want to say that city staff take that seriously. And there's a short window ahead of you to address that petition and the next legal steps to move that forward, which I won't venture to get into. And all that to say, in this very short time frame, you need analysis, review of this petition, and advice on your steps to move forward. And given the amount of other work that your city staff and your city attorney are doing, I would suggest engaging outside legal counsel to evaluate and advise you of your next steps as it relates to this petition. With that being said, I would entertain a motion to consider Hinkle Law Firm as outside counsel to review and advise you on this petition.
I would make that motion.
We have a motion. Is there for Hinkle Law Firm?
Yes.
To outside, okay.
And where are they out of? I'm not.
They're a Kansas City-based firm.
I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
City Manager, seeking outside counsel in a situation like this isn't out of the norm. There's a couple other communities, I believe, down south that have a similar situation that have done the same exact thing, correct?
Yeah, you're just getting someone to give you as a commission advice on how to move forward with the petition. I can't give you that advice because I'm not an attorney, and City Attorney Finch is working on other things for the city day-to-day business. You have a very short window here again to evaluate this petition and have someone advise you of your steps moving forward. It's critical that the city follow the law, and I think the best way to do that is to consult with outside counsel on that and someone who specializes in this field. And I believe Hinkle Law Firm would specialize that and would send somebody that could properly advise you on this petition.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May I have roll call vote?
How do you vote, Commissioner Van Layden?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley?
Yes.
And Mayor Clayton?
I vote yes. Motion passes. That'll take us to item 12, comments by our city manager.
Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, operational highlights. I want to thank the Police Department for their work at National Night Out on August 4th and Dare Camp on July 30th through August 1st. So I would let Chief speak to that, but some great pictures there. I think we had about 80 plus kids attend Dare Camp. So I went out and visited for a day, and that's a great event and keeps the kids busy before they head back to school. Operational highlights for utilities: the water plant treated 12.6 million gallons of drinking water and continued system flushing. Water distribution continued the water main replacement on 19th Street and responded to the water main break at 15th and Willow. And electric production completed testing and commissioning of the Unit 7 generator breaker, which returned critical generation equipment to operational readiness. Public Works, Streets Department painted 16 crosswalks and 8 stop barriers prior to school starting, and patched 110 potholes with cold patch. Parks Department trimmed trees at Forest Park, picked up limbs at cemeteries and parks, and removed canopies and buckets at the pool. I just wanted to remind you of some upcoming events. Golf Ready event at August 19th and 24th. Music Bingo on August 20th. That would be doors at 6:30, event at 7 at Plaza 1907, or excuse me, at the OMA. and then golf camp on September 15th through the 17th. Just want to remind everyone of the current employment opportunities for the city. You can visit the website to apply for those jobs. Tentative items of business for next week, August 19th at 10 o'clock a.m. would be Finance Department monthly report for July, second quarter presentation by our community partners, award of construction contract for the 15th Street traffic signal and sidewalk, notice to set public hearing date for intent to issue IRBs for Kansas State Bank, a resolution to consider a rural housing incentive district for South Haven, authorization for repair of our bucket truck, and then the 2027 budget review. With that, I'll take any questions or comments.
Any questions? I don't think we have any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 13, comments by the governing body. Commissioner Van Lieden.
No comment.
Commissioner Allen.
I have no comment.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Well, I know during our public comments, our rules are there's no debate, there's no dialogue, and a lot of you have been presenting a lot of information for us, and so I do appreciate that. I've been taking a lot of notes. I've got a stack of notes I've kept pretty well on, and so I do thank you for bringing a lot of things to our attention. And I've got a written statement. It helped me to write it out this morning, so in case I didn't want to leave anything out. So let me just say this on this whole project. Over 10 years ago, Ottawa voters overwhelmingly passed a sales tax specifically for the purchase and development of Proximity Park as an industrial park. Our North Industrial Park did not provide the size and scope for a large development. Kubota Tractor did look at us, but that was over a year before we even bought Proximity Park. In fact, Kubota Tractor was the catalyst that prompted us to start looking elsewhere for expansion since we were landlocked up north. So whether Lightfield moves forward or not, I believe we need to continue working forward to fulfill the majority of the voters of Ottawa that told us what they wanted, and that was to buy more land and get it developed. I've been a commissioner here for 13 years now, and the number one complaint I receive at City Hall is that our taxes are too high. And I agree, they are too high, and we're all taxpayers up here. We now have the opportunity to remediate that number one concern within reason. Within reason, I'm all in. Right now, we have 0 jobs out there at Proximity Park and 0 real estate taxes on this property. Almost anything we secure out there will be an improvement to our community versus what we have out there today. My 3 minutes is up, I guess. I'll yield back.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley.
I just want to address a conflict comment that was made earlier about my company. I have 3 electricians that work for me. I'm one of them. My 74-year-old mother answers the phone. I don't even have enough guys that can mow the grass out there. Better yet, do the electrical that's going to be required for a data center. So I can guarantee you that Advantage Electric will not have any trucks backed up to an AI data center if it goes in. Thank you.
Thank you. I do just want to give, we talked a lot about grants today. A shout out to Eric and Heidi Duderstadt for receiving the Heritage Trust Fund grant. I saw a picture with Director Stauffer at their building they own where Sutton's Jewelry is. So the 200 block of Maine, we've seen a lot of grant funding, state funding, money from outside the community come in to help restore these buildings. So shout out to the Duderstadts for that, and then Ottawa Main Street, and everyone who had a hand in that application to get that funding, because as we saw 2 weeks ago now, I'm going to lose, we had a building with a deteriorating roof, and we know that these buildings downtown are expensive to maintain and are hard. And so city staff, for your guys' help, if, I'm not sure who all was a part of the process in getting these grants for them, but just to everyone involved, thank you for the time and effort to that. I want to do a public shout out, just finding out that the Over the Road gang paid for a portion of those sidewalks at Forest Park. They've been a great partner. I believe, if I'm wrong, someone correct me, $50,000 for the structure that just got built there 2 years ago, a year and a half.
The tractor show.
Oh, that was Tractor Show. Okay, Well, thank you to both of these groups who host these huge events in town, and the money that they do bring to town and then put back into the parks and everything. I just didn't want, their $6,000 contribution to get missed in what was mentioned earlier. There's a lot of great things coming up in September, so excited for that and excited for that work to get done before the end of the year. That'll take us to item 14, announcements. August 19th, we have a city commission meeting here at 10 a.m. in City Hall. August 26th, we have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission at 4 p.m. here in City Hall. September 2nd, we have a commission meeting here at 7 p.m. in City Hall. With nothing further to come before the commission, we are adjourned.